Well, it's the idea of comparing apples to apples, right? It's like, okay, if you are susceptible to something, it doesn't matter what you're doing on the outside of it, you're already susceptible to it. So whether it's a mouth guard or a head wrap or whatever, you're already there. So
right. And one of the big conversations, I mean, I know that you're aware that the NFL, what did they market against that concussion movie? It was like $24 billion of marketing, right? And there was new pads and new helmets. And, you got chiropractors out here saying they cure concussion when in fact they cure whiplash, which can be part of head trauma, but it's not right. We've got helmets out here when there's very clearly a video, and it's all over the place. And I can share it with you if you want to share it with your followers, from the concussion movie, in which Dr. Omalu, played by Will Smith, puts an onion in a jar with some water and explains to his fiance that the brain floats freely in the skull. A helmet cannot slow down the impact of that brain floating freely crashing into the skull. Nor can a mouth guard, nor can, right? I mean, these are just common sense things. And I know that sometimes we can all get caught up in marketing, but it's time to come back to some common sense here and do the right thing so we can get this nailed.
And the idea that we're trying to do things with this and with that, and whatever, when it's really what's inside that we've got to deal with.
Yeah, and as it relates to the sympathetic nervous system and brain, them having shared biochemical drivers of dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, which are neurotransmitters, which are prevalent and run the entire brain. There's some bigger things. There's some bigger questions that the world of medicine and pharmaceutical and so forth and science are asking that I know the answers to. So it all connects very beautifully. Whatever we see come out of Boston University, or whatever we see come out of Dr. Omalu's work or other people, all of their work always validates our work. So we always know we're on the right path. One of the things I think you'll find of interest is Boston University actually proved that shell shock is biochemically identical to concussion syndrome in the brain. And we have 300 and I think it's 40,000 soldiers coming back from overseas with shell shock. So, I think the arrogance, the egos, all of the pieces that were involved in this, all the, I have a bunch of nightmare stories to tell, right?
Right.
All of those pieces, though, that were involved, I think it's time to, there's a time where you step away from the bullshit and you say, okay, how do we get this done? Realistically, can we stop fighting? Can we stop being childish? Can we stop being mean and spiteful and petty and all these things? And simply, I used to joke, and I think you might have heard me say this one, Frank, I feel like I was sitting in an auditorium with a professor giving a presentation, and he asked a question. I had the answer, and they let every single person in the room beat the hell out of me before I got to tell the answer, right? So,
right. And we've all been to that. It's like,
yeah,
what is everybody else doing here? Okay, yeah. Well, okay. So here's the dilemma that we've talked about before, is that we're facing two completely disparate things. How do we solve a problem? And then we have another group of people that are, how do we make money off of the problem? And it's not that they're not trying to solve the problem, but they're also operating as a business trying to solve the problem as well. And this may be a larger thing as far as the medical profession in general. I want to get into that. But we have a lot of businesses that have sprung up around trying to be, lack of a better term, concussion friendly. So where are we as far as saying, okay, look, we all need to be on the same page and figure out what do we need to do? And you mentioned something perfect. When you say it's a biochemical thing, I understand that intuitively to say, okay, no matter what we're doing as far as the trauma is concerned, there's something that's more instantaneous on the inside than it is from the outside.
Right,
Now,
and the science shows us that that's factual. You know, speaking about places that are being concussion friendly now, certainly you and I both understand, everybody watching this understands that there's a certain percentage of shysters in the world that will jump on the bandwagon to make a buck and say anything and do anything, okay? But I don't think we should assume that all people are that way. We know that some of these people stepped in the ring trying to do the right thing. I think where I have a little difficulty is where the people and the companies that know that they're not serving this space well are still in it, or they're not evolving. And I've spoken with a number of those companies and offered them an opportunity to evolve into greatness. And they're more interested in where they're at because it's comfortable and they're making money. So that part I have a problem with, because that's an ethical question. I do always have issues with people who have ethical questions. Understanding though that business in general kind of tends to rip and run and let's see what sticks. Okay. As an entrepreneur myself, and I have a company, as you know, and I have a nonprofit. I have both. Okay. We're Panacea Biomed, and we are Driven Brain, and we are Purpose Driven is our nonprofit branch. Our website for our product information is drivenbrain.com. But that being said, I studied this for me, Frank, so it had to be perfect, right? So even when you're a great scientist in a university or a corporate structure, there's usually a lot of pressure to hurry up and get some kind of an outcome. For me, it wasn't like that. I had a natural gift in this. I used to, I was a single mom, so I used to kind of do like my internet dating, and then I'd stay up all night on a Saturday night until the sun came up because I'd find all these connections. I mean, I had a true gift in this for many, many years. So it was my thing. I actually never thought the world would accept the kind of work that's coming out of me and the kind of patents that I'm delivering the world. So it's a blessing, I think, overall. And obviously I understand the trajectory of my journey, but I think that what I really want to see is I want to see some of these people who do not have it right evolve as people and embrace, and let's get this nailed, because this is, you know, when I was the ticked off sports mom, I spoke to the NFL Players Association's vice president, and he said to me, so Alicia, why are you calling us? Why do you want to help us? And I said, well, honestly, now don't take this wrong, all the people who hate feminists and all the people who perceive things about women and men and yada yada, but this was my mood at the moment. I said, well, y'all men, you can screw each other over in business all you want to. In fact, you can screw over your neighbor if you want to, but when it comes to screwing over our kids, I got a problem with it. And I would have had a problem with it even if I hadn't had a catastrophic mild traumatic brain injury, right? So that's really what we got to, you know, rouse around here. And it's a timely, not only answer, but it's a really good time in our country to talk about ethics. And we have situations where it's become very, very okay to not have good ethics. And that's not a strong foundation for us to move forward with as a country that is the greatest power in the world, right? So.
Right. Well, you know, it's funny because when we first met, Pissed Off Sports Mom was really pissed off.
Yes, she was.
And
it took me a couple years to work through that.
Well, but you still had the same drive. So that was the thing that I said. Okay, you knew where you were going to go, but you didn't get past Pissed Off Sports Mom initially. So I'm glad to see that part. Not that I didn't like Pissed Off Sports Mom, but Pissed Off Sports Mom was like, okay, you need to shut up now. I'm going to talk. So
I eventually didn't like Pissed Off Sports Mom because, you know, Pissed Off Sports Mom on the sidelines gets somewhere. She gets heard, but she doesn't necessarily make progress. But what it really took, Frank, is first of all, it took the numbers of doctors and scientists that came through my life that were floored. Like if I go to the doctor, I don't go to the doctor very often, but I went in the spring. And so the doctor for a physical, and the doctor said to me, oh, you're a neurobiologist. What do you do? And I said, well, my primary work is this sympathetic nervous system and brain. Oh, you have patents? Oh, yes, the simultaneous neuroregeneration of the sympathetic nervous system. And their jaw drops and they want to know more, right? So it took those people to validate me and for me to understand my worth as a scientist, to get out of Pissed Off Sports Mom mode, to heal from what I had been through, to face I really took, Frank, you heard some of the abuse that I took, the kind of abuse and the death threats and the ridiculous stuff that I went through just for trying to stand up and say, hey, can I help? Right? Was crazy to me. So I was really bitter about that. And I really needed to heal from that.
Well, I think it was part of the approach and the acceptance of the approach. Like, okay, I know more than you do, what you do, but people didn't want to hear that. And
well,
people had to actually see.
I think at the time,
but people had to see that you did know more than you did.
Yeah, there is some of that. I think at the time in the medical structure, specifically among doctors, there was, in the alternative and integrative space, especially alternative, there was conversation about the sympathetic nervous system. And then these things take time to find their way to people conversationally. And by the way, not every doctor goes to college because they have brilliance and they want to heal people. So a lot of doctors go because they want to make money. So, right. If they didn't listen in school, they don't know something. I'm considered a 1% scientist, so they wouldn't necessarily know. But so this conversation about the sympathetic nervous system started really evolving. The sympathetic nervous system is sometimes called the fight or flight. It manages all stress in the body and pain, moods, immune, and addiction. And so mainstream doctors, we're starting to have this conversation around the sympathetic, and the timing was beautiful, right? And of course, we have a much bigger answer than concussion, but the truth is that if we can get people to start talking about it so we can, lead towards other answers and really truly deliver what we are called upon to deliver to science and humanity, that is our objective. But we see no reason to hold something like this off and not let those suffering and not let our kids get the benefit of it.